Director Faulkner, Director Hudson. Here. Director Moeller.
Here.
Vice President Patroff. Here. And President Cuneo.
Here.
All right, so we have a quorum, and I believe Director Faulkner will be joining us shortly. First thing on our agenda for 2.01 is the Xander Award winner.
Good evening, Vice President Patroff, Board of Directors, Dr. Keenan. I'm Jennifer Henry, the Executive Director of Communications, and tonight I have the honor of celebrating our Xander Award winners and our scholarship recipients. I hear that there is some traffic, so we are still awaiting some recipients. We may circle back as they come in, but I would like to start with our Xander Award winners. We are pleased to recognize the outstanding achievements of this year's Rosemary Xander Award recipients. Although our Commitment to Kids banquet could not be held due to the COVID-19 pandemic this year, we are glad to be able to honor them this evening. The Xander Award has a long recognized accomplishments of students receiving services or technical education from SSD. Since 1988, students have been honored for success in a variety of categories: academics, arts, athletics, communication, vocational training, employment, independent living skills, community service, and extracurricular activities. The recipients are chosen by a panel of judges who carefully review and for the nominations submitted each year, poring over the heartfelt and thoughtful words of SSD staff members who clearly think the world of their students. While it makes the selection challenging, it is also a true testament to the work of SSD. Thank you to all of our nominators, and congratulations to our recipients. We're going to call up our students to be recognized and receive their award. When you come up, please stay up here so that we can make sure to get a photo with the board. Anna Bryan. And then Xavier Brown. Xavier is a student at the Center. Paul Davey. Dominic Erb. Is a Omaha High School student. Jade McLaughlin. Do we have any other award winners who came in? One more, making their way. Go ahead and stand up in front of the dais.
There's no one else?
There's one more comment, so we'll have you just wait here. Go ahead and line up, and we'll do a photo here.
Brady Schnabel. Also, Heidel. Crystal Hall. Crystal is a Jennings Northview student. Any other students? Okay. We'll go ahead and grab a photo. Tara Johnson. Tara is a Riverview Gardens High School student. Congratulations to all of you for your outstanding achievements. Board will have you stand to have the board in a group photo.
Okay. All right, guys.
All right, everybody, 1, 2, and 3. Got it. Thank you so much.
Decided here for some refreshments.
Starting with this then.
The award winners you see on the screen are the ones who were able to receive tonight. Our next slide is our other students. These are winners who were not able to join us, but we did want to recognize them. Next, we're going to recognize our James E. Westbury Board of Education Scholarship. Unfortunately, our students couldn't join us this evening, but we wanted to recognize Kenneth Crouch from Hardwood Central High School and J.Lo Williams from North Tech High School for their accomplishments. And just a reminder, the James E. Westbury Board of Education Scholarship was established in 2018 to recognize individual success of our students who receive special education or attend our technical high school. We're also going to recognize our bottom line scholars. Tonight, only one of our scholars could join us, and that is Anna Braham. The name may sound familiar because her all-stars. The bottom lines are longtime supporters of education in the St. Louis area and have been providing scholarships to graduating SSD students since 1987. They conduct a variety of projects and events that benefit children in our community. Next, we have the Allison M. Hague Scholarship. I'd like to call it Kathy Hague. Joe, sorry. The Hagues are here this evening. The scholarship was established in 2008. The scholarship is in memory of Allison Marie Hague, a former SSD teacher assistant. Allison was an inspirational teacher who at an early age knew she wanted to make a career of working with children. The Allison M. Hague Memorial Scholarship is awarded to a deserving student who has an interest in working with children. This year, the scholarship is awarded to Takia McMorris, a senior at Parkway Central and South Tech High School. Kathy and Joe Hague are Allison's parents. We're happy to have them join us this evening. You guys come to the center so we can get you pictures of the board.
When you're ready, 1, 2, and 3. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations to all of our award winners and scholarship recipients.
Next, before we do our presentations, I would like to read a memo.
Yeah, we need to get one.
Oh, we need to take one more picture. With, for you.
What's that line?
If that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, you deserve it. Yes, there you go. Center stage.
Oh, yeah.
We're putting these flowers in the picture too.
Thank you.
1, 2, and 3. Got it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Before we start the presentation, I just wanted to read this real quick. Before we start our monthly SSD Board of Education work study, I would like to take a moment to remind the audience and the directors of the board on the work study process. The work study is a time to receive information from SSD leaders. We have 20 minutes set aside for each presentation and 20 minutes for the Board of Education to ask questions. In the event we are approaching the 20-minute marker, I will alert the group that when there's 5 minutes left. We ask at that time to present or finish up in the allotted time, and the board director to start asking questions to finalize their questions. This is in respect for all board of directors and SOC leadership time. Thank you. All right, the first presentation we have is the budget presentation.
All right, good evening, Vice President Patra, President Cuneo, Board of Education, Dr. Keenan. My name is Jeff Hogg, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Special School District. The purpose of this presentation this evening is to discuss the FY23 budget. As we have presented in the past, that's based on 4 goals. Those 4 goals that we talked about and were decided on by the Budget Committee: equity, staffing, curricular support, and facilities. Using those goals and the theory of zero-based budgeting, we decided we use zero-based budgeting because, and I've said this before, we never want the budget to drive the curriculum. We always want what our students are learning in that curriculum to drive that budget need. So as you can see, we've talked about this. We have 3 areas or 3 parts to zero-based budgeting: needs, wants, and enhancements. The needs are what we need to provide for a base curriculum. And a lot of times I've given the example of that's a textbook, that's, a workbook. We get into wants, and that's what we're currently doing. That's what we're currently providing, the education that we are. So we would never want to go below that. That would be manipulatives or software, things like that. And then the enhancements, that's what we look at with what can we do better? What can we add to the program? What can we do for our kids? It may take the shape of a speaker, it may take the shape of a field trip, but that's how we look at that. What we need to do to continue where we're at, what we need to do to make it better. And then again, we focus on all 22 partner districts, we focus on our 11 districts that receive disproportionality money, and then we focus on our 8 high-needs districts. And so as you can see on the screen, we have revenue by source. We receive that in basically four big buckets. You see 5 on the screen, but there's 4 that everybody knows about, and that's your local, your county, your state, and your federal. When we talk about local, that's our taxes, that's our tax base. This year will not be a reassessment year. Since it's not a reassessment year, SSD historically sees a $2 to $3 million increase, and that's from an increase in new construction and increase in personal property. So as you can see, we're projecting about a $2 million increase there. When you look at that screen, you see that we projected $322 million this year and a projection of $310. We've discussed that, the Blankenship ruling that fell on probably 45, 46 school districts across the state of Missouri. So that's why you see that decrease there. County, you'll see the same. We're projecting the same revenue from year to year. State, you'll see, we do see an increase there. Foundation formula, now that the legislature has wrapped up the budget, the foundation formula is fully funded, but there was not an increase, so we won't see an increase in that. We will see an increase in Prop C, which is sales tax, and that's where you see that increase from the 102 to the 104. And after we submitted this, the legislature on Friday approved full funding of transportation, which is actually really cool. This is something that there was a big push for. Unfortunately, right now it's a one-time thing, so the legislature does not know if that will be continued, so we'll look at it as a windfall for next year. What that means for us is we currently project about $6.5 million in transportation, and that's about 17% funding. So when we look at the fully funded, we're looking at about 15.9. So that number of 104 will change by about 9.3 million. There are some rumors and talks out there the governor may withhold a little bit of that, but until we get something certain, we're just going to project that full funding. So you will then see that bottom number change the next time we present this on the 24th. You look at the federal line, you see an increase in there. We've discussed our Medicaid money, that will increase now that we're doing cost settlement as well, and I'll talk about that here in a second. So you see a conservative estimate of about $4 million increase. That could be anywhere between 4 to 6 next year, but we're pretty safe projecting 4. So the contracted services and other revenue will stay the same. You see the $476 million number on the bottom. That, like I said, that's going to increase, and we're looking in the neighborhood of $485 million for next year with revenue. Next slide, please. So this brings us to the expenditures. We've discussed expenditures, and we know that we negotiated for 2 years, and so we're not negotiating with the NEA this year, SBNEA, so we know that where that's going to fall. So you see the increase from $197 million to $203 million. Non-certified salaries, we're going to see an increase, a projected increase from $111 million to $114 million. And then fringe benefits, that's your medical and retirement. We'll see an increase in there. We're out for RFP right now, so we're getting bids to see what that looks like as we move forward. It looks promising right now, probably in that range of a 3 to 4% increase, which is captured there. Purchase services will remain the same in that same boat, and then supplies will remain the same. Capital outlay, we're finalizing a few bids and projects, but it'll fall in that $21 million range right there. So you'll see a grand total of $509 million for next year. That is more than the revenue, so we will project deficit spend. And just for reference, about every $5 million is 1%. So we're looking probably 4 to 5% deficit spend if we reach that 509. And I say that because we project our expenditures on the higher end and our revenue on, a more conservative approach. And so, next slide, please. And so when we came to you in February, we brought forth positions that were going to be requested so that you could approve them tentatively and we wouldn't have to wait until after it was approved in May so we could start the hiring process. In between then and now, we have realized that there are 4 more positions that we would like to add with your permission. And I'll introduce those now. So Wendy Pendergrass and Dr. Grigsby will join me here. Ms. Pendergrass will discuss the Assistant Director of Compliance and the Paraprofessional Coach. Dr. Grigsby will discuss the Translation Coordinator, and then I'll discuss the Medicaid Billing Manager.
Good evening, Vice President Potroff, Dr. Keenan, Board of Directors. I'm Wendy Pendergrass. I'm going to talk to you about the additional staffing requests for the Assistant Director of Compliance and also the Paraprofessional Coach. Next slide, please. Susan Henry is currently our Director of Compliance. Our Director of Compliance does a variety of things. It helps support our due process, our child complaints, and our mediations and facilitated IEPs. And that's, although our numbers are increasing slightly, they are not near the amount when you compare the amount of students that we support throughout the special school district. That's not the reason why we're asking. That's going to help out greatly when we're doing the research and collecting the documentations and supporting staff. But what we really want to do is have a proactive approach with our coordinators, with our administrators, and allow them to go over the Missouri State Plan, the compliance plan. We did this year, one Wednesday of every month for a half day, we provided compliance training over a variety of things, legal things happening with the IEP process, legal things happening with due process, commonalities to our administrators, and that's what we really want to continue to do, is to be able to have the opportunity for us to be on the proactive end. Also reach out to our families if our families have questions, trying to prevent them from going due process or in a mediation. So it really will be a positive part. She will also support Susan Henry when it looks at any of the Office of Civil Rights complaints, any of the other complaints that we would receive. Next slide. The other position is a para-educator coach. We are hoping to use the funds that are coming from the grant that we were awarded. Kevin Haar has came here and presented. He is our paraprofessional facilitator and does a wonderful job. We have moved several hundred paraprofessionals through a 3-day training. Because we feel that that training is a lot of success, we would like to get him some help, because what we would really like to do is expand that program into mentoring and supporting paraprofessionals out in their field. It will also help Kevin, as when we have trainings in August, you're putting 40 people through a training every 3 days. So it would also provide him some support at that. But it's really the follow-up piece that Kevin, because we continue to hire paraprofessionals throughout the year, that we would really like to have someone that can go out into our schools and programs and make sure that they can support our paraprofessionals out there. Next slide.
Good evening, Vice President Potshoff, Board of Directors, and Dr. Keenan. My name is Kelly Grigsby. I'm the Executive Director for Schools and Programs. I'm here tonight to talk to you about a new position, a translation coordinator. This position would be hired to oversee translating IEP documents. Currently, we do not translate IEP documents, but there's legal precedent that indicates we should. Plus, quite frankly, it's the right thing to do for our students and families. This position would oversee written translations. We are seeking to hire someone who is bilingual, preferably in Spanish, but they would also work with our vendors as we're translating in other languages as well. They would help overseeing the development of templates, and they would just facilitate the process within in-house as we are working to make sure that we're providing that for families and for students. They also may be providing professional development to our staff on processes related to using translated forms and also to requesting translations. Thank you.
Next slide, please. And then the last position that we discussed is Medicaid billing manager. So over the past few years, we've been able to reconcile and receive more revenue with our Medicaid billing. At first, it was just the direct billing, but now it's cost settlement as well. And so as I was discussing earlier, we'll see an increase in that. We'll see an increase from about $4.4 million to about $10.2 million this year. So we'll see an increase of about $6 million. What we want to do is we'd like this position to come in. Currently, right now, we have 4 different people working on 4 different parts of SSD, and then we get together and put it into one. So we'd like to, using some of this revenue, bring in and have an SSD manager, or a Medicaid billing manager, so that we can not only, one, have somebody become an expert in it, but make it more efficient, make sure we are receiving the amount of revenue that we should, and especially as we get into cost settlement in some other areas with some billing, with some RBTs that we may go to. We're looking to have somebody who is just one person, an expert on it, and help us move forward in that regard. So those are the 4 new positions that we're looking at. Next slide, please. So as we've discussed, this is an updated amount. We'll be looking to add 54 employees at a cost of $3.745 million for next year, and total staff reduction at this point of 6 at $475,000. Next slide, please. And that brings us to the end of the budget presentation. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
I have a couple. And mine will be regarding contract services. I mentioned to you in our last meeting, talked about legal fees. How much of that is now we find ourselves paying in legal fees? Contract services for revenues for our expenditures that we've had.
Yep. I believe it was.
Do we have any information about how much we're spending with our legal fees?
Yes.
Did we provide that?
And that was in the Friday packet.
I missed that. Also, did we have a breakdown in reference to those contract services and how many of them are African-American vendors?
We will provide that at the end of the year when we wrap up with our MBE, WBE presentation. So we will be able to show the number of contracts we bid out this year and the percentage for WBE, MBE at that point.
I got a couple questions. I have one more. Translation coordinator. In that particular role, I know that there are a couple of services that does that as well. Are we now experiencing that those services that are not applicable for our needs anymore?
So we're finding that outsourcing all of those services, given when we're talking about IEP documents, reevaluations, evaluations, all of the documents that go into the IEP process, it would be more cost efficient to hire someone to oversee. The most frequently seen language we have is Spanish. So if we have someone that is at least bilingual in Spanish, they could handle that piece, and then we would continue to work with our vendors on our less frequently used language.
So Spanish becomes probably the most next used language opposed to other languages as well?
It is currently, yes.
And can I tag along on that? You're also going to ask this individual to proofread, though, what's going on with the outside translators.
We're going to ask them to oversee quality, yes. Absolutely, and they won't necessarily speak those languages, but they can work to work on to examine the quality, yes.
I think it's good to have a secondary person looking at that.
This may be a bit redundant here, but with regard to the translator, you mentioned bilingual, but I assume this person, as part of their qualifications, would be a certified translator?
Yes, certification would be required.
I think translation sounds amazing. On the paraeducator coach, do we see this having a positive impact on recruitment and retention?
I think they would work collaboratively with our success managers to see what we are missing, providing feedback from our paraprofessionals, and be the direct connect to our human resource. I absolutely see for retention.
So I would love, assuming this is approved, to have feedback on that as we move forward, so we can see how that has changed, and hopefully in a positive way, our para retention.
Yes, ma'am, Dr. Myers.
I have a question for everybody else. On the fringe benefits, we're talking about a $2 million increase. Is there a possibility, are we going to also look at the cafeteria plans on this? We've talked about that.
Yeah, so currently, like I said, we're out to bid right now, and so we're reviewing all of that, what we can do. One of the things Dr. Keenan has done a great job at really pushing what benefits we can and what we can offer. So we review that all the time, but when we wrap that up, we can bring that back to you.
Is there a possibility that next year an individual would be able to choose if they wanted a cafeteria plan?
There are so we have two options right now. We have the HSA and we have the regular benefits. And then we have some other options where we're looking into, with this RFP, the possibility of some other extraneous benefits.
Because we had talked about that, especially with younger staff, and we had talked, we did a great thing when, when we started talking about having the benefits start, they used to start, to help them start. I think that's fantastic. But we had also talked about, when we were talking about retention of staff, certain cafeteria benefits, especially if an individual had their insurance possibly through a spouse, why are we put that money into a healthcare savings plan? What can we do?
We're exploring that right now. We actually just had a meeting about that this afternoon.
Good,
So,
just didn't want to get that lost.
right, in the HR action plan that is, with Mr. Boyd coming in on July 1st, that will be built into the planning for next year, and that when they go out for bid, they'll be looking at how these, and we'll update the board on how we're looking at different options for our staff and where they're at to be able to offer that to them.
Just a couple of, these are good with money. New position for our educational coach, I think it's a great idea. It's currently being funded by the Missouri Teacher Recruitment and Retention Grant. It's an ongoing grant, it's a one-time deal, or are we going to be picking up the tab afterwards?
It'll be reevaluated when the grant's over, and I believe the grant is 3 years. 3 years. 3 years, so we'll evaluate that one.
Good idea, great. price tag for our Medicaid billing manager. We had figured that this individual would pay for themselves. That was what when we had talked about this originally. Still, how much are we figuring it's gonna run us? How much do we figure this is going to save us?
We're looking anywhere in the neighborhood between $60,000 to $70,000 or $80,000 for the price tag of the person. They will recoup that in efficiencies. We found through just meeting with the 4 people the other day, we were missing probably $100,000. So as we become much more efficient with it, we'll recoup that cost.
I know, I think it's a great idea, but at the end of the year, is there a way that we could come back and say, not only was this a great idea to have somebody come because it's really taking some workload off of others, but this is how much money we save, or we get back.
Yeah, we can take a look and we'll be able to.
I think that would be nice to present because it's reasonable.
Yeah, and I think in terms of this position in particular, because it is a revenue generator and that we are expanding those out, it's going to be key that we have that connection to how the billing is processed. And with the outside agency that oversees those pieces, this will be making sure that we have these pieces in place will help us not only to recoup our additional funds, but also to make sure that we're adhering to all the regulations around this.
Oh, I can see this one. If in fact this is effective for us, I can see every other school system taking a look at this and saying, you know, we'd like to look at, can we look at your data? I see this one's.
I would agree.
Any other questions?
Yes, Dr. Holland, hi. Thank you for the presentation. I'm curious about page 5, and if you can explain, sorry if I missed it earlier, but can you explain the big jump in capital outlay from fiscal year 20 and 21 to what seems like almost doubling up to 27 for budget year?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So when you look at FY20 and FY21, those are actuals that were spent. And both of those years were pandemic years. So that end of 20, we weren't in the buildings. In the beginning of 21, you know, we were not in the buildings. And so a lot of the capital was not spent through those years. Normally, we budget right around that $21, $22 million mark. That's the amount of money we put in from our tax rate to fund that. So when you see the 27 for this year, that also includes the 2 projects of audiology and bridges that were not in the budget to begin with, but we knew we had some carryover in our Fund 4 that we could afford to spend down this year. So that's why you see that at a much higher level than the previous years.
Any other questions?
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is 2.03, the partnership agreement update.
Good evening, Vice President Petroff, Board Directors, Dr. Keenan, School Community. I'm Chiquita McGriddle, Executive Director of Partner Districts, and tonight I will be providing to you updates regarding the partnership agreement. Next slide. And so what have we learned about the partnership agreement? We've learned that it has definitely supported us with guiding conversations with each of our 22 partner districts. We use this as a tool to collaborate in those areas that you see before you. And we like to ensure that we're having intimate conversations. But it has also helped us to increase knowledge and awareness between both the partner district as well as special school districts. Next slide. We have looked at what are those needed changes. And when I say we, that is our partner districts as well as special school district leadership working together collectively to talk about those specific needs and where we see gaps that will in return support how we deliver services and support our students and our staff in each of our 22 partner districts. Taking into consideration that each district is unique to itself, and we have to ensure that we're able to meet them at their schoolhouse and provide those supports and services to them. 2.03 2.8, directors and special education coordinators will meet with the partner district superintendent annually. And we want this to occur to ensure that we're having opportunities for our directors as well as our special education coordinators to work hand in hand with our partner district superintendents and leadership to talk about where we are individually as administrators, those special education administrators in those districts providing services. Of course, myself and Dr. Yates, we provide those evaluations, those mid-year conversations, those ongoing conversations 7 times per year with our partner district liaison, our directors, coordinators, and other members of the leadership team. But we wanted to ensure that we were truly allowing for intimate conversations to take place with superintendents to talk about the efforts, the work that has been done by our special education leaders in those districts. And so what you have in this presentation is a link to our administrative performance review that we use each year for all of our administrators. During these conversations, we allow the leaders to lead these conversations with us and talk to us about where they are, but to also provide artifacts along with those ratings. And what does this look like in your day-to-day functions, in your day-to-day work? But we can't just stop there, right? Because Chiquita can't be in all 22 districts and Dr. Yates can't be in all 22 districts, but we know that our superintendents are there. And we want to ensure that they're able to have those intimate conversations with them. Of course, this is not an evaluative process. This is a process for reflection, just as they would do with us. And then we would in return have those conversations with our leaders to talk about planning for the upcoming school year. You have this information here for your review. Next slide. 2.9. This area will allow our SSD leadership and our partner district leadership to work together again. This is where we really focus on developing goals. So each year, our directors work with their special education coordinators and other members of their teams, which can include their instructional coaches, lead teachers, and other staff members, to talk about developing goals in the areas of literacy, numeracy, as well as social emotional. We want to take that a step further this year, and we want to ensure that we're really focusing on the engagement survey data and really digging deep into that by partner district to talk about our plans and efforts to support our staff based on the information shared. We also want to ensure that we expose our partner district leadership to that same information so that they are aware and they can be partners in ensuring that we're providing positive climates for our staff to work in, as well as our students to receive those services. And so you have this information before you. It is our goal to work with partner district leadership as well as our SSD leadership teams collectively at the start of each year to work with those directors and special education coordinators to talk about their plans for the year, to hear what the goals are that they have developed, and to provide reflection to them, if needed, to ensure that we're supporting the needs of each of those 22 districts. And so those meetings will take place at the start of each year. And we want to ensure that this happens annually so that we can continue to see those strong partnerships, but also creating those positive school climates and environments for our staff and students to feel safe, respected, appreciated, and loved while at work. The next added component is category 3, and this is evidence. And this is where we want to ensure that our special education coordinators and directors are really supporting our parent advisory councils in each of the 22 districts and working with them hand in hand by being partners, being thought partners, and being present at those meetings to ensure that if there are questions and if there are needs, that we are there to support them and to be aware of those concerns and to help them and guide them with any direction that they may need. Next slide. I wanted to share with you our beginning and end of the year important dates. You have this information here before you. This information will again support some of those added components that we talked about as well. June 30th, we want to ensure that all partnership agreements are finalized, and that means that they have been signed by the partner districts, approved by the partner districts, and they have been submitted to us for review. And then as we began to develop those 22 and 23 partnership agreements, we want to ensure that we receive them no later than September 30th of each year. This, again, allows us to review, to ensure that we clearly understand the process, and to ensure that it is pushed out for us to do our work. In regards to the partnership agreement being submitted back to us, we want that information by October 31st. So it's no later than September 30th. That information should be presented to each of the partner districts to ensure that we obtain those signatures, but to also provide that information to them. Going back to the June 30th date, this is where they will provide their end-of-the-year data. So we'll compare where they were at the start of the year to the end of the year, and again, that will help them in developing goals. Next slide. Are there any questions?
A couple. When you say for 2.9, present at the start of each academic year, do you mean August before school starts or September after a couple weeks are in?
So we say at the start of the year because we know all districts are different, so we don't want to set a specific date. However, we do know with the dates that we've provided in the packet on that last page, everything will be in sync with those dates. And so by September 30th, those conversations should have been had, and it should have also have been presented to the board.
Yeah, thank you. And then the other one was a very similar question. I have to go backwards. Oh, for 2.8, when you're going to meet annually the superintendent, when in the school year do you like to have that meeting? Or is it, since you've got 22 of them, it's just one a week, or?
So when we talk about this specifically, this presentation will occur between July and September. Again, that's September 30th date. And we will work in partnership with each of the superintendents and their schedules and what they have available for us to meet. And then we will conduct those meetings in accordance with that September 30th date.
Any other questions?
I have one. I'm curious, on that same one, 2.8, that says it's not evaluated?
Yes, because the superintendent is not the evaluator of the directors and special education coordinator. I am the direct report for the directors, and so I would do that evaluative piece, and then the directors would do the SPED.
The reason why I asked that, then, when you look at the educational partnership agreement, under staffing category 1, first one, the SSD and partner districts will collaborate in the selection, supervision, and evaluation of staff, including teachers, paraprofessionals, others as appropriate, including directors, principals, assistants, area coordinators, etc. So, my understanding of this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is they will provide input into our evaluations, and we will in turn also provide input into their evaluations. Is that correct?
We do have those conversations. Again, I cannot be the direct reporting evaluator or a partner district staff person, but if there is feedback that I can provide, and we do provide feedback, and they do in return provide that feedback, it can be used as a part of the process, but not as a part of the evaluative process, but for feedback, for us to work with them in developing goals and to talk about those reflective pieces and our next steps.
I just want to say evaluation, the other says no evaluation.
And we can take a look at that, and we can ensure that the language is in terms.
You're in control, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
And I'm just saying, I'm not saying which way you need to do it. I'm just telling you, you're saying here it's not evaluative, but under your staffing, you're saying, yes, it is evaluative.
Right.
But it's collaboration in that.
It does call out evaluation.
Yeah, but it's collaboration in that evaluation piece. So they can utilize any pieces of information, just like we'll be utilizing.
Then we should not use the term of that, not evaluative here.
May I ask a question that might clarify? This category 1 is about the evaluation of staff specifically.
Yes.
Correct.
Is that the purpose of the meeting?
The purpose of the
That you're
meeting,
gonna have with the superintendent is to specifically evaluate staff?
no, it is not. It is to talk about our annual goals for that specific district in the areas of numeracy, literacy, social, emotional, but also the climate components, and any additional goals where they may see fit for that particular district based upon their CSIP plan or strategic plans as well too.
I just wonder if that may be the distinction. I don't.
I'd say it's unclear. You might want to take a look.
We will, thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, do I have the motion to adjourn?
Second.
Everyone, all agree to say aye?
Aye.
All right, thank you everyone for attending our meeting.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
As you get older in your mail, that's very